There comes a time in everybody's life when God allows someone to leave, whether that be a friend, a partner, a mentor, or a voice you thought you would always be part of your story. At first, it doesn't make sense. You replay conversations, you question yourself, and wonder if you did something wrong. But sometimes the people you lose are the very ones God had to remove for your protection. You see absence, but God sees alignment instead. You feel the heartbreak, but God sees the healing in motion. He sees what's ahead, the roads you don't know you'll walk, the battles you'll have to face, the character He's still shaping inside you. And He knows some people simply can't go where He's taking you. It's not punishment, it's preparation. It's not rejection, but instead redirection. God will allow certain people to exit your life when their presence begins to interfere with your progress. And though it hurts, one day you'll realize that losing them was not the end of your story, but rather it was the beginning of the next chapter He was writing. God sees the full picture. We see faces and emotion, but God sees motives in the unseen future. He knows when someone's influence will start to cloud your judgment. He knows when comfort will slowly become a cage. You may look at someone and see kindness, loyalty, and shared memories, but God can look a lot deeper. He sees the whispers, the jealousy, the subtle compromises that could destroy your peace if left unchecked. Think of it like a master painter stepping back from his work. We stare at a single brushstroke and call it beautiful or unfair, but he sees the entire canvas. He knows which colors must fade so new ones can take their place. When someone leaves, it's not because you weren't enough, it's because their chapter in your life has served its purpose. Some were meant to teach you how to trust, others were meant to teach you how to let go. If God didn't intervene, you'd keep trying to build permanence with people who were never designed to stay. And that's why He steps in, to prevent temporary people from taking permanent seats in your heart. Before God brings increase, He almost always brings isolation. He clears the stage before He introduces the next act. When He separates you from people, He's preparing you for purpose. The pain of separation is the pressure that molds identity. You begin to see what you actually need versus what you are simply used to. Look through Scripture and you'll notice the pattern. Abraham had to leave his homeland before God fulfilled His promise. Joseph had to be betrayed before he could step into leadership. Even Jesus spent time alone in the wilderness before His public ministry began. Isolation builds dependence. It strips away false security so your confidence rests in God, not in the approval of others. It's uncomfortable, sure, but purpose always begins in places of discomfort. The soil of isolation is where your roots grow deep enough to handle future storms. So when you feel forgotten, you're actually being formed. When God pulls you away from familiar faces, He's drawing you closer to His. Familiarity feels safe, but sometimes safety keeps you stagnant. People who've known you longest often struggle the most to recognize who you're becoming. They remember the version of you that was insecure, uncertain, or dependent on their validation. But God didn't create you to live confined by old definitions. He's shaping a new identity inside you, one that might make others uncomfortable because it challenges what they thought you'd always be. And here's the truth: some people can't celebrate your growth because your growth exposes their refusal to change. They preferred you small because small didn't convict them. So God removes you from the circles that demand you to shrink. He disconnects you from the relationships that constantly pull you back into what you used to be. If you cling to what's familiar, you'll never discover what's faithful. Faith isn't built in comfort zones, it's built in obedience. So don't fight to stay where God is finished working. Don't beg to be understood by those who stopped listening when your vision started expanding. The same God who gave you the courage to grow will give you the strength to walk away when growth requires distance. Rejection can break the strongest heart, but often it's protection wearing a disguise. You wanted them to stay, you wanted that door to open, but God said no, and at first that no felt cruel. What you couldn't see was the weight that came with that yes, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the slow decay of your peace. God doesn't remove something good to leave you with nothing. He removes what's good now to make room for what's holy later. If you knew what He knew, you'd thank Him sooner. You'd stop mourning every ending and start recognizing His plan always replaces subtraction with purpose. That job that didn't work out, that relationship that ended, that friend who suddenly turned cold, none of it surprised Him. He was saving you from heartbreak disguised as opportunity. Rejection often carries revelation. It shows you where your trust really lies. Do you trust God only when doors open, or also when He closes them? Because faith isn't proven by what we gain, it's proven by how we handle loss. When you feel alone, you're being refocused. Loneliness isn't always abandonment, sometimes it's refinement. When everyone leaves, you're finally able to hear what God has been saying all along. He allows silence because your attention was divided. You were too busy chasing connections to nurture communion, so He pulls back the noise. He quiets everyone else. And in that stillness, He teaches you the difference between presence and purpose. There's a deep kind of peace that only exists in solitude, the kind that reminds you that you're never actually alone. God's presence doesn't compete for attention, it awaits your focus. That's why the seasons where you feel forgotten are often the seasons where He's the closest. He's teaching you to rely on His voice again, to find comfort in His word rather than constant conversation. When people leave, let them. Don't beg for company when God is trying to build your capacity. The silence isn't empty, it's sacred. It's the sound of your spirit being realigned with His will. Every person who leaves forces you to face something within yourself. You realize how much of your peace depended on being understood. You discover where your self-worth truly stands. Pain exposes the foundation of your faith. If it was built on people, it'll crumble. But if it was built on God, it endures. Growth is rarely gentle. It stretches you until comfort breaks and character begins. You start learning lessons that success could never teach, such as patience, humility, forgiveness, and endurance. If everyone who's left had stayed, you'd still be depending on them for validation. Now you've learned that stability doesn't come from who stands beside you, but from who stands within you. It's in the seasons of loss that you develop the strength you'll later need for leadership. You begin to carry peace that doesn't shake with circumstance. You stop needing everyone to understand your path because you finally trust the one who directs it. Pain becomes a teacher that comfort never could. Even though you wouldn't have chosen it, you'll one day thank God for using it. Nothing weighs down the soul like resentment. If you have resentment in your heart, it's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to hurt. It keeps you tied to the very pain you're asking God to heal. Forgiveness is not about excusing betrayal. It's about releasing its power over you. You can't step into new blessings with clenched fists. God feels open hands, not hands gripping old wounds. So release them. Release the situation. Release the need for explanations. Some people will never understand what they did. That's not your job to fix. Just pray for them, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Every prayer for someone who hurts you breaks another chain off your own heart. Forgive fully, not just halfway, because partial forgiveness keeps you halfway healed. As long as you release others, remember to forgive yourself too. For staying too long, for ignoring red flags, for giving more than you received. You are not defined by the moments you regret. You're defined by the grace that followed them. When you forgive, you free space for new relationships that reflect your healing, not your history. The bitterness fades, and what remains is wisdom, the kind that protects your peace without hardening your heart. So in conclusion, God never wastes what He removes. Every removal has a reason. Every goodbye carries guidance. Every closed door protects something sacred. God wastes nothing. Not the tears, not the silence, not the heartbreak. Everything He removes is part of what He's rebuilding. Look back for a moment. Think about all the times you begged for something that didn't work out. At the time, it felt unbearable, but now you can see it, the hand of God redirecting you from the harm toward hope. He doesn't take from you without preparing to give you something better. He doesn't prune without the intention to make you fruitful. He doesn't allow endings without already writing the next beginning. So thank Him, not for just what He's given, but for what He's taken away. Thank Him for every person who left because their absence became the doorway for your transformation. Thank Him for every season of silence because it was there that you learned His voice. Thank Him for the closed door because the next one opened was something truly meant only for you. You are not being punished, you are being positioned. You aren't falling apart. You're being rebuilt in alignment with purpose. God removes people you thought you needed to reveal that the only one you needed had never left your side. As He continues to prune, to shift, to refine your life, remember this. He's not trying to make you comfortable. He's trying to make you complete. He's not stripping you of connection. He's strengthening your conviction. And He is not ending your story. He is editing it for glory.